we've been talking amongst each other and realizing that there's so many hidden stories.
Right.
There's so many hidden stories that people have that they've grown up with, stories
that they've
of
experienced, right?
Stories that they've experienced that maybe they haven't really shared. And, one of the things that we've realized is that from watching the protest, listening to comments from some of our brothers and sisters of different backgrounds, is that, wow, I didn't realize it was still that bad. And it's because the stories probably have not been expressed, haven't been told.
Larry and I were just discussing, we could go back and just a catalog of memories that we've kind of pushed to the side because carrying a weight or burden of injustice over and over again can be a heavy load, right? And so it's not that you don't allow those things. Yeah, basically, like you just end up casting all your cares into God because the weight is too heavy for you to carry. And so Larry's going to share a little bit of his hidden story. And we were just like, God, let me tell you, it was one time about in the last 2 weeks, something had occurred. And I just remember for the first time from an injustice crying out and just saying, I'm tired. And sometimes as Christians and believers, we sometimes suppress those feelings, but just understand that God also gives us feelings, and he knows he gives us joy and peace. He knows that sometimes we're going to be angry, and he gives us his word that says be angry and sin not. So we have his word that we live by, right? But I just want to tell you that it's okay to talk about it. It's okay to discuss it, right? Because a change has come.
And it's like therapy to talk about it. It
honestly is. And it's freeing, right?
It is.
So there is, and God wants it to happen now. You can just tell that this is his timing of, okay, so it's gone on long enough. There has been a suppression of people and an oppression of individuals, all because of the skin that I gave them in my glory. When I saw them, I said it was beautiful, but someone else deemed it to not be so in their own mind and in their own judgment, and it's not okay. So the series is titled Hidden Stories. So it's there to best help those who are looking for more information of, I didn't know, right? Because right. There are some people who are wanting to know more. They're wanting to understand. You can tell that their hearts are being changed, and this is what this is. This is an inward change from the heart of so many Americans, because honestly, before, has there ever been a congregation of people of so many different races and cultures coming together saying, you know what, this is enough, and I'm standing up for justice, I'm standing up for what is right, and the Bible compels us to do that as well. So we're going to tackle those hidden stories because we think that it's necessary. It's a release for some people, and then we're also going to help you all, because you may be asking, okay, so from your journey, I didn't remain calm, I've been bitter, I've been angry, I've been holding on to this. How have you been able to have so much love and joy still amidst having had these stories? So there's nobody but God, let me tell you that, or otherwise, you will be bitter and angry at everybody, right? So we're going to discuss that too, but I'm going to turn it back over to my husband, so then that way he can tell his.
Well, I was going to say there's so many stories, unfortunately, and it's not just me. Obviously, it's all of us who have been involved in just police stops that were, possibly even unlawful, and profiled and things like that. And it's just really unfortunate. But like she said, it's time to talk about it. I really feel like this is going to be a therapy for a lot of people. We had a recent men's session at Word of God where so many men came out and was able to tell their story and got a relief, and so it's important. So one of the earlier stories I can remember is being around 17 years old and riding in Fayetteville, North Carolina. I was living in Spring Lake at the time, and a police officer pulling me over, and I'm like, what did I do? I'm legal, registration's good, I didn't do anything wrong. Oh, your music is too loud. And so now I need to check you out. I need to make sure that, license, registration, and, and I always felt like, what are they looking for? I didn't do anything,
I mean, and looking.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that, early on when you have that experience, it's like, okay, all right, well, you got to be extra careful. You got to make sure that you're always on and doing what you're supposed to do. But to be stopped for no reason, and then to continue to have experiences, hanging out with friends, and leaving a location at night, and oh, you know what? Why are you guys still here? We're gonna arrest you for trespassing. It's like, what do? We're just walking to our car, officer. But the threat of being arrested for trespassing when we didn't do anything, so stories like that. There's a story where my wife and I here, we were hanging out in the park, just sitting there talking.
Yep.
In the car, and next thing you know, a police officer rolls up, then another one, and another one, and they wanted to search the car, and they wanted to know why we were sitting in the car talking, and we were dating at the time. I want to say,
we were.
This is late 90s, and so I knew I had nothing to hide. Go ahead, search the car. And by the time it was over, we had, seemed like half of Raleigh PD out there, but I'm being exaggerative, of course, but it was a lot of police officers to search the car. But it was ironic because I was actually in school at the time for criminal justice.
Yeah.
And to be a police officer. I was at Wake Tech taking criminal justice, about to take BLET, basic law enforcement training, because one of the paths that I had interest in was law enforcement. And I remember talking to those police officers that night, saying that I wanted to continue to do that. I wanted to continue with that field and to learn more about it. And so it was just,
I think one story that we really have talked about sharing was one where it was the Amy Cooper situation, where she called the authorities on a black man when literally her intent was to use the color of his skin as the threat. And it's sad in a day and a time where literally, if you think about it, that was the threat.
Right. Because she knew what could potentially happen to him.
She knew what, right. I want to get him in trouble. I want to get him locked up. So I'm not going to just say what, make up a fabricated story and a lie, but I'm literally going to use the color of his skin because I know the dynamics of America, right? And so what happened was that my husband and I were at a local eating at one of our favorite local restaurants in downtown Raleigh.
That's right.
And we were young. We I remember it was the blue Dodge Shadow that you had.
Wow.
And we had parked across the street.
Remember the blue Shadow, y'all?
Right? So we had actually parked across the street, and when we parked across the street, we didn't know that we had parked in a space that was from a firm above the restaurant,
right,
and that it was a parking space for them. So when we came out, there was actually a boot on the vehicle.
That's
and
right.
So we actually ended up finding out who the boot was from. We were like, okay, we'll just go upstairs and ask them if they don't mind calling the company and just asking them to remove the boot, because those are fees, right? And so we were young. We didn't have very much money. So we were just going to go ask. It doesn't, my mom would always say, it never hurts to ask,
That's right?
So we were going upstairs to ask. So I remember we went upstairs and we knocked on the door, and the lady, I think it was two ladies, answered the door, and we were just like, hey, we told them what happened, but they didn't scream at us or anything of that sort, but they weren't going to do it. So, we just ended up walking away, right? It was just like, okay, so where do we go to pay this fine? So we end up, by the time we had walked back downstairs, there's the police. And the police officers end up talking to us and said that one of the individuals upstairs who we spoke to lied on my husband and said that he threatened them. So if anyone knows Larry is not threatening someone. So that was a lot of anger, right? Like, you are angry that someone not just lied, but lied to the authorities and gave them information that they thought in turn was going to do what? X, Y, and Z. When you lie on
Amy
someone,
Cooper.
right. So that hurt, right? Because how dare you do this to my husband? And I think we need to just talk about how do we comfort our loved ones when they experience this. What do we say to them? How do we teach them? How do you go about life when these things happen? And I think it's necessary that we have this open dialogue, that we have these open conversations. So that couldn't be a weight that we carried for the rest of our lives. But it is a moment in this history and time right now where we're able to say what happened, and that, yes, this just wasn't Amy Cooper.
Right.
For people who are like, well,
no, it was Larry Pickett in that case.
Right. It was just an isolated event. That usually doesn't happen. No, this has happened. We are one of the millions and millions of people who live in America, and I am pretty sure, darn sure, that we are not the only ones with this unfortunate, ridiculous story, right? So
we didn't let it make us bitter.
No, and we didn't allow it for us to
change
and to change, because
that's right.
And that's what we were telling our kids. We were telling our kids, listen, you're doing your part to be who you are supposed to be and who God ordained you to be. Amen. Don't let the evilness of this world change your heart, but you're going to have to march for freedom. You're going to have to protest for freedom. And your voice is going to have to be heard. So how are you going to use that voice? What are you going to do?